After my husband died, I was left to raise twin babies on my own. My parents refused to help. "You made your choices," they told me. But my in-laws opened their home and stood by me through every sleepless night. Years later, I sold my horse ranch for $100 million. When my parents suddenly came back into my life, they expected gratitude. Instead, I gathered everyone together and revealed who was receiving the biggest gift from the sale. The moment my parents realized it wasn't them, their faces froze in shock. My mother said it through the screen door. She never even stepped onto the porch. I had two one-year-olds asleep in the back of the car 11 days after the funeral, and I asked her for 3 weeks on a couch. She folded her arms and told me adults handle their own messes. My father stood in the hallway and looked at his shoes. My brother cracked his bedroom door, saw it was me, and closed it. I carried 2 car seats back down the steps, and somewhere between the second step and the car, the porch light clicked off. I cried until the county line. Then I called my mother-in-law just to say I was struggling. She listened for 20 seconds and said, "Where are you right now?" 40 minutes later, my father-in-law's truck pulled into the gas station lot, and he started moving car seats without a word. My mother-in-law pressed a casserole dish into my hands, foil over the top, still warm from her stove. She said, "Set 2 more plates, they're ours now." 7 words. That was the whole negotiation. Their place was 80 acres of bad luck, a barn that needed a roof, a mortgage nobody talked about at dinner. But I had a degree in equine science I'd paid for myself, and on my 9th day there, I stopped at a stall in the back. A 4-year-old mare with a leg that turned in at the knee, headed to the Saturday sale because nobody wants a crooked horse. I watched her move 3 steps and saw what everyone missed. That leg let her push off faster than a straight-legged horse ever could. I asked for 1 season. 14 months of 4-hour nights later, she could stop on a dime. Her foals sold for numbers that made my father-in-law sit down on a bucket and stay there. We fixed the roof. We paid the bank ahead of schedule. Within 6 years, the bloodline was in barns across 3 states. That's when my mother started calling. Not on Christmas. On a regular Thursday, which is how I knew. Suddenly, she remembered my children's names. A half-second slow, like she'd practiced them in the driveway. My brother called next, needing a loan for his failing franchise. I told him I helped people who showed up. He told me I'd always been dramatic. Then he forwarded me an email by mistake, meant for my mother, with the whole thread underneath, going back to the spring after my husband died. I scrolled. There it was in her own typing. "Some people are just a bad investment." And below it, the line I read 3 times standing in the kitchen. "We keep it civil. If the ranch ever amounts to something, we'll want the door cracked." They hadn't forgotten me. They'd filed me away in case I appreciated. I didn't call. I didn't scream. I printed it, put it in a drawer, and went back to work. 2 years later, a Western lifestyle company offered $100 million for the land, the brand, and the bloodline. I signed. Then I spent 3 weeks with my attorney making everything irrevocable. A locked trust for my twins. A foundation in my late husband's name with a written preference for parents raising children alone. And the deed to the original 80 acres, signed back to my in-laws free and clear, recorded at the county office 3 days before the celebration. My family showed up to that celebration uninvited, walked through the front gate dressed for a photograph. My mother introduced herself to strangers as the woman who raised me. My brother told a reporter the family had sacrificed everything for my start. 300 people on my land, and they worked the crowd certain their seats were being saved. I got on stage and I didn't raise my voice. I announced the foundation first, and my late husband's name unrolled on a banner 20 feet tall. Then I asked my in-laws to stand, and I told 300 people the land was already theirs again, every acre, because 8 years ago they set 2 more plates, and you don't repay that. You can only try to match it. The crowd came to its feet. My mother's smile stayed on her face, but it had stopped meaning anything. Then I said there was one more gift, and I walked down the steps and handed her the envelope myself. She opened it right there, in front of everyone, because she assumed it was a check. It was the printout. Her own email. Her own words. 8 years old. Bad investment. Keep the door cracked. I watched her read it. Watched her understand that I had known the whole time, through every warm phone call, every practiced mention of my children's names. The people around her were close enough to see the page. And for the first time in my life, my mother had nothing to say. Full story on the channel linked below.